those who are already disadvantaged? How do we leverage on artificial intelligence to break the gap? So that where people, for instance, have difficulty in seeing, have difficulty in hearing, or have difficulty in mobility, how do we ensure that deploying AI tools does not disadvantage them further? I'm among the legal people. And so fairness is something that is very, very key. And so how do we ensure that as we deploy AI, we are fair in doing so and people are not worse off as a result of the technology? And so the Responsible Artificial Intelligence Lab, working with all our collaborators, ensure that in application of artificial intelligence, we are very responsible. We currently have a lab here at KNUST, but we are working with collaborators in Senegal, in Cape Verde, in Germany, and all other parts of the world. I was happy at this invitation because AI is multidisciplinary. It is not the preserve of one college. It is important that we work together. It's actually impacting on the lives of everybody. Everyone is affected, and for which reason it's important that we do a lot of education. And so this is something that we are very excited about. This is our lab. I'm showing this picture so that you will want to come over. See where we are. Let's sit down. Now let's come home to why AI should be responsible. The reality is that many have said that AI is a game changer. But depending on which side of the game you are, the game can change for the negative or for the positive. If you are in Manchester United, you understand me. And so primarily what it means is that the application of AI must be such that at the end of the day, we add value to the life of the human person. If I want to travel and you are using AI at the airport, and then at the end of the day, I am JJ, but the AI is telling me you are not JJ, and for which reason I'm not traveling, that is an irresponsible application of AI. And I'm using this, sparingly, but the reality is that in reality, people have been denied of passage because the models that were being used in some of the airports were trained with people who were, white colored. And so when it comes to applying it to dark-skinned people, there was a challenge. And so all I'm saying is that it could go wrong. And that is the reason why it is important that we do a lot of awareness and a lot of education as far as its use is concerned. The reason why AI also should be responsible is that, you see, when AI is responsible, it can be trusted. And trust is very, very important. It's a currency that you actually cannot put monetary value on, but it's very, very crucial. And when AI is trusted, its adaptability and adoption is huge. I was listening to the conversation. There is a lot of encouragement for us to apply it in the academic sector. But then there is pushback with reference to the impact that it will have as far as critical thinking and the rest are concerned. And so primarily what it means is that when it comes to trust, there is a limitation there. And so how can we ensure that we are being responsible and we are communicating same, so that at the end of the day, people can be happy and comfortable with reference to adopting AI solutions? Currently, we are doing some work at the AI lab, and it borders on assistive technologies for people who are differently able. And we realize that there have been several technologies that have been deployed, but then when it comes to adoption and then uptake, it is below 25%. What that means is that not many people trust AI applications. But it's good. But the reality is that they do not understand, and where they are skeptical about it, its adoption cannot be, increased. For instance, in the educational sector, if you have, professors not very sure about the impact that it will have on students, then we will have a problem. And so all I'm saying is that it is important that we apply AI responsibly so that one, it can benefit more people, and two, its adoption can actually be enhanced. So AI solutions are delivered with integrity, equity, respecting individuals, and always being mindful of the social impact of what we do. We have defined responsible AI like this. Responsible AI is people-centered AI. So at the end of the day, all that we are interested in is that what is the impact of the AI on the average person? At the end of the day, does it add value to the person? I wouldn't want to be quoting references and all that. Simply put, people-centered AI. How is this AI impacting on my life? If it's making me better off, then I will welcome it. If it is making me worse off, then it is irresponsible AI. What are the considerations as far as an AI solution is concerned? We have looked at it within the context of four key blocks. The first one has to do with the envisioning stage, where we begin to think of what we want to apply it to. So for instance, in your context, you want an AI that will help you as far as preparing for a case is concerned, isn't it? You have a lot to read. You go to a lawyer's office, big books. And some of my lawyer friends will say that the type of book that is used determines how much you pay. You say, this case, we have to use the big one. Now, the reality is that if you have all these material to review before you prepare for a case, if you can have an AI that can run through them and then present you with a brief, that at least cuts off a lot of the wahala that you have to go through. Definitely, you have to review and be sure that what is presenting is right. But then, it would have helped you enormously. And so, if, for instance, the idea is to develop a tool to help you in preparing for a case, that is the envisioning stage. And so that gives us an idea of what we want to achieve. But I have already said that when it comes to AI solutions, it is actually powered by the amount of information or data that is available to train our models. And so what that means is that you now begin to have to ask or answer the question, how much data is available to be able to train our models as far as this particular issue is concerned? So if we want to develop an AI for helping you with your cases, what it means is that there must be data on all the case files, isn't it? Yeah. And it doesn't have to be limited to only one jurisdiction. So if you don't have records on cases in Ghana, and all the cases that are available are in UK or the US, if you train your model based on that, the case where Akosia Mansa and then Kwaku Yeboah were involved in at Bojisango will not be in there. So primarily what it means is that the next issue that we deal with is the quality of the data. The quality of the data. And friends, the reality is we need to be concerned about how the data is acquired, how good the data is, and how the data has been managed. That is very, very important. And so even though it may be good quality data, how we curate or acquire the data is important. If we are putting people at a disadvantage and we are actually not respecting human life in acquiring the data, that in itself is irresponsible. I want to say something here. You know, there are instances where people want to gather data with reference to, let's say, rape cases and all those things. And there are videos that people have to see and then help in the curation of the data. And so at the end of the day, people are exposed to a lot of videos and images that are injurious to the human person. And so even though you are gathering data, at the end of the day, the approach with which the data is being gathered in itself is flawed. That is irresponsible. That is irresponsible. And then the other issue has to do with when the data has even been acquired, the application of the data can also make AI irresponsible. And so at every stage, it is important that the principles of responsible AI are subjected to that stage to ensure that, one, we are respecting human life and making sure that we are adding value to the human person. If I want to solve a problem, but in solving the problem, I am causing a problem, then it is no solution. So the second one is data. The third one has to do with the model, developing, training the model. And so in training the model, how even the algorithms are developed is very, very important. Because there are instances where the algorithm in itself, in its operation, will promote biases. So that is one thing. And so at the end of the day, it's important that we are responsible in how the algorithms are actually being developed and how they are deployed. The other issue has to do with, you see, we can have two algorithms in running them. One is more friendly to the environment than the other. And so we now have to look at what is the carbon footprint as far as running this algorithm is concerned. There are some algorithms that require huge amounts of computing power to be able to execute. So at the end of the day, you have developed a solution, you are healing the sick, but you are destroying the environment. And so it's important that we look at all these considerations as far as responsible AI. Then we come to the deployment. What is the societal impact? At the end of the day, how are we adding value to human life? So these are the 4 blocks. If you forget everything, remember this with reference to responsible AI. What are the considerations? The first one has to do with fairness. Fairness. You see, the reality is that because of the data that we use, there is the likelihood that there may be bias. But if you identify a root cause as far as fairness is concerned, it is always important that we put interventions in place to limit bias. We may not be able to eliminate it completely, but at least make an attempt to ensure that we have limited its effect. The other one has to do with accountability. You have coded or you have developed a machine that is replicating a certain behavior. At the end of the day, when there is a problem, who do we hold responsible? There have been conversations with reference to autonomous vehicles. And there have been other jurisdictions where initially they were allowed, but they were called back because some of these vehicles actually, for instance, when it comes to wheelchairs, where a wheelchair is using the road, the same as the car, how do you classify a wheelchair? Is it a vehicle or is it a human being? So it becomes important that we know who to hold accountable so that at the end of the day, when something goes wrong with the AI, we know who to hold responsible. And so whoever is coding must ensure that at the end of the day, I am ultimately responsible as far as what goes on is concerned. Then the whole issue of equity. This is also a principle of responsible AI, ensuring that people are not disadvantaged and there is not a class system. You see, when we develop AI solutions, it must not be the preserve of a select group of people. If I've developed an AI solution, but only people living in Kumasi can afford it, but my grandmother living in Alakle cannot afford it, then we have a problem. And so in deploying AI responsibly, we want to ensure that we are looking at AI within the context of a public good. It's not just about profit, it's not just about money. If it's putting money in your pocket, but then you are running over people to be able to get that money, it's not good. And so at the end of the day, we want to ensure that we are not creating a class system, and so equity is very, very important. Then the issue about data and then privacy. You know, these days there are a lot of cameras around, and then they will say that it is for our own what? Safety. Is that not what they say? So you drive across and then your pictures are being taken and all that. The reality is that he who holds that data must demonstrate that he is going to be responsible with reference to the use of that data. And you only query the data only when it is very, very necessary. When we now begin to use it for our own parochial interest, and we begin to use it as a weapon against our enemies, then that is an irresponsible use of technology. And so data and privacy, respecting the privacy of people. You know, when we are conducting research and we are gathering data from people, it is important that we seek their consent. But when we have sought consent, we must not apply the first consent to other ones. You collected my data because you were doing something related to exams. And then I gave you feedback. And then because you have gathered the data, the next time you are using it for a project that I know nothing about. That is irresponsible. And so data and its privacy, very, very important. The issue about transparency, making sure that at the end of the day, we are actually letting people know what is in there. The social impact is also very, very important. Then there is the environmental impact, and then there is safety. These are core principles as far as responsible AI is concerned. And this is generic in nature, so that when we are developing an AI solution, at every point in time, we need to be able to subject that solution to these principles and find out whether we are being responsible or not. So I've talked about accountability, I've talked about social and environmental impacts, and then ethical issues. At the end of the day, we must be sure that we are using AI responsibly. I've talked about transparency and then explainability. There is a solution that we are developing for smallholder farmers. And at the end of the day, what we had to do was to go and sit with the smallholder farmers and explain to them what it is that we are doing and ensure that we are actually doing it together, so that at the end of the day, when it comes to uptake, they actually can know that we are doing it together, and for which reason they will also be able to adopt it. Explainability is very, very crucial. I've talked of data and confidentiality, and then safety and security. I'll be ending very soon. Now let's look at a quantitative view as far as responsible AI is concerned. The reality is that I can say that my AI solution is responsible. Della can also say that her AI solution is responsible. But how do we ensure that there is some objective view as far as being responsible in the application of AI is concerned? Several frameworks have been developed with reference to same. And at the Responsible AI Lab, what we have also been able to do is to develop what we call the FACES framework. FACES framework stands for fairness, accountability, confidentiality, ethics, transparency, and then safety. And so everything that we are doing, what we do is to try to generate a score based on certain questions that we ask and be able to make a determination whether the AI solution is responsible or not. This we did within the AI 4D framework, working with other labs in Burkina Faso and then in Tanzania. And so as I did indicate, there are 4 key blocks: the envisioning stage, the data stage, the modeling stage, and then the deployment stage. And every stage, we ask a number of questions, and then what we do is that based on the feedback that we are given, a score is generated, at the end of which we generate a global score with reference to the application of AI, and then make a determination whether it is responsible or not. The question then you will ask is that, at the end of the day, okay, so you have generated the score, and so at the end, what next? What we actually want to do is to encourage as many people as possible to use frameworks like this, so that we can generate a badge as far as responsible AI is concerned. So that if, for instance, you have subjected yourself to this framework and you have gotten a badge, those of us who are consuming your product will now use that as a measure to decide whether we want to do business with you or not. And so where you have decided that you are a big gun in the tech industry, and so you don't need any review, what it means is that the consumers will know that you have gone rogue, and so we will be careful when it comes to dealing with you. This is what we want to push as far as ensuring that AI solutions are responsible is concerned. So if, for instance, we have developed an AI solution for use of students or by faculty members, we want to subject it to the FACES framework and ensure that we are being responsible with reference to its use. So what we did was that at the envisioning stage, we put 30% there, the data stage 20%, the modeling stage 25%, and the deployment stage 25%. So that at the end of the day, when we compute how responsible you have been, and we realize that there is a lower score in any of the levels, it gives us some feedback with reference to what needs to be done to enhance the solution that we have developed. So these are some snapshots with reference to its application. The last thing I'm talking about has to do with responsible AI and inclusivity. And the reason this became important is that, you know, we have developed AI solutions, and in this lecture, it is possible that there is somebody amongst us who has difficulty seeing, or there may be someone amongst us who has difficulty with hearing or has mobility challenges. If I come up with an AI solution, so for instance, you are all lawyers, and then you are going to court, and someone is being assisted by an AI with reference to the preparation of his, preparing for court. And in developing the AI solution, I did not take into consideration the fact that there are people who cannot see. Then I am being a bit irresponsible. What it means is that in developing solutions, we need to be mindful of the fact that there are different categories of persons. For instance, if we are applying AI in a classroom, it is important that where people are differently able in the same class, we must ensure that we are mindful of the solution we are deploying so that they are not at a disadvantage. And so how do we ensure that AI solutions don't make people worse off? And so that is basically what we are also trying to push. That in all the deployment of AI solutions, let us ensure that we are representative. How do we ensure that we are representative? The data set is very important. If we are training our models, the model must be intelligent enough to know that there are different categories of persons. If you are developing an AI solution with reference to the use of the road, the AI must be intelligent enough to know that there are people who use wheelchairs, and so they are taken care of as far as that particular AI solution is concerned. So people who have difficulty with vision, how do we ensure that in a class like this, they also can be part of what we are doing? Now there are AI solutions that can actually give you some information with reference to your surroundings. And so actually, Google developed a solution like that, where you actually can query the AI can tell you how many people there are in the room, what is the color of the room, who is sitting by you, how many people are in close proximity to you, and the rest. The only challenge that we have is that in deploying that solution, not much attention was paid to people in the global south. And so yes, there are several solutions that have been deployed, but it is only useful when it comes to people in a certain jurisdiction. And so when we talk of AI and inclusivity, it is important that we look at AI solutions, looking at the context of all manner of persons and making sure that we are being very representative. So in terms of the data set, don't limit the data set to only people who are in the global north. We must be intentional about generating data sets with reference to people from the global south, so that solutions that have been developed are useful both for people in the global north and in the global south. There are several solutions that have been deployed, but most of these solutions have been trained with data from the global north. It creates an opportunity for us in the global south. There is no point reinventing the wheel. We need to pick what has been done and then see how we can tweak it so that it is useful for people in our jurisdiction as well. So there is so much that can be done in this regard. In terms of data sets, we've talked about the need to create what we will call an Afrocentric group of data sets, so that, for instance, we talk about large language models. A lot of people have been using ChatGPT and a number of things. But the reality is that if you were to ask ChatGPT about something that goes on in my village, ChatGPT will not know, because the data set that it is relying on does not factor in the fact that there are people in the rural communities in Africa. For instance, when it comes to models that actually give translation, if you want translation into Spanish, into English, into French, it will give you accurate translation. But there are several languages in Africa that actually have not been factored in. So for instance, where we are looking at the case where we are looking at text-to-speech or speech-to-text, whatever it is, what it means is that if we have not factored those in, it will not be useful to people from our jurisdiction. What that means is that it creates an opportunity for us to create a number of data sets together. Then my last but two slides is that this one has to do with cost. Okay? AI does not have to be the preserve of only the rich. It is important that we find avenues through which we can bridge the gap. Responsible AI requires that when I deploy a solution, I am mindful of affordability, how many people can be able to use the tool that I am deploying. When it comes to tools for people who are differently able, I did indicate that it is important that it's representative. But what we realize is that, for instance, in terms of mobility, there are a number of intelligent wheelchairs that help people who have difficulty walking, but it's very expensive. It's very, very expensive. And so the same solution, but only a few people can afford it. What we are doing in the lab is taking an ordinary wheelchair and retrofitting it, and then adding the AI functionality so that you can afford something like this in our unique jurisdiction. And so primarily what we are saying is that it must not be the preserve of the rich. You see, we don't have to create a class system so that when it comes to AI, it is the people in the US and China and the rest against the rest of the world. Let's see how we can bridge the gap. So what are the key enablers and then the game changers as far as AI is concerned? Someone talked about the need for us to look at the infrastructure. We want to deploy AI solutions at KNUST. It is important that we ensure that the infrastructure that is necessary to be able to do this exists. If we are looking at it within the context of the nation, how do we ensure that the infrastructure is taken care of? When it comes to data, data is the blood that actually runs AI. If the data is not available, we can't develop AI solutions. We must be intentional about gathering the data. I know that there are people in this room who have a lot of influence. When we are planning for the future, now I know that there is a lot of manifestos that are being thrown at us and all that. How intentional have we been with reference to the next 5 years, the next 10 years? If we want to be leaders as far as the digital space is concerned, what steps are we taking so that we can be leaders? It's not just talk. We can't say that we are a digital country when the basic things that help us to be able to drive this revolution we haven't provided. So infrastructure, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in the village. The internet must not be limited to only the urban centers. If I have an AI solution and I'm in the village, I still should be able to use it in terms of data and even computing power. When it comes to compute, gradually what is happening is that primarily the world is divided between those who have the power to support AI and those who do not. And it has to do with computing power, and that has to do with chips. Previously, US, most of their chips are manufactured in Taiwan. And so they don't go to China. Now China is getting closer to Taiwan. That creates an opportunity for us in Africa. How do we ensure that we become the hub where we actually can take over as far as the chip market is concerned? As long as we keep talking about AI, that is an area that can change the game for us. And as we think about the next 5 years, the next 10 years, how are we creating that environment where businesses can move from these places and come to Africa and help us be able to do this? Talent. I am happy at this conversation we are having, but it must come to a point where every course at KNUST, at least there is some basic understanding as far as AI is concerned. The reality is that you are either on the train or you are left and people go and leave you behind. And what this also means is that those of us who are matured in age, we need to now begin to look at how do we tweak the way we do things so that we can be very techno-savvy as far as moving forward is concerned. Regulations and guardrails, very, very important. We can't just talk about it. We need to put measures in place to ensure that as we harness the positive, we also guard against the negative. Okay? Responsible and inclusive design and deployment of AI solutions, very important. Then I talk about the last thing, which is having a national AI strategy. I happen to have been on the committee that developed that for Ghana. And every week, we have our colleagues. So it was this year, just this year, the Continental AI Strategy for Africa has been adopted. South Africa's AI strategy has been adopted. Nigeria, our cousins, recently also adopted theirs. The reality is that if we recognize AI as relevant to our discourse, it is important that we have a conscious plan with reference to how we integrate it into the way we do things. And that means that there must be a national strategy. The strategy is locked up between cabinet and then parliament. As to who will carry it from cabinet and take it to parliament for it to become a document that we will use, there are beautiful things in that document. And it cuts across all sectors: education, healthcare, transportation, everywhere. As long as we want to apply it, what is the blueprint that is guiding us? We have always been leaders, but on this particular score, we need to do more than just talk. In conclusion, we are saying that AI is impacting every field of our lives, and we need to flow with the tide and make the most of it. It is important that we rescale ourselves as far as this area is concerned. And so everything that we are doing in the Quality Assurance Office, in our teaching, in our administration, everywhere. If you are an administrator and all that you have been doing is to take minutes, now when we have Zoom meetings, it is an AI that gives us the minutes. So what you need to appreciate is that if your work is routine, then AI can easily take over. But there is a certain painting that, or a certain photo that normally goes around WhatsApp that I find very intriguing. There's a certain construction that is ongoing, and then you say, ChatGPT, continue. What that means is that if your skill is not easy it's not routine, it means that you'll be in business for a very long time. And so primarily what it means is that we need to see how we can let AI work for us and not AI replace us. We need to be strategically position ourselves to harness the positives whilst guarding against the negatives. There are clear opportunities for collaboration as far as AI is concerned. Creating data sets, that is very important, and it must be applied responsibly with people and society in mind. I want to say a very good thing for the opportunity for us to have this engagement. I am hopeful that it will not end here. I have shown you where the lab is. The lab is at the College of Engineering. It's actually closer to the business school. Directly at the other side of the road, you have RESC, and then behind RESC, you have KEEP. So that is one place. The other place is the Quality Assurance Office. Okay? When we are doing the summer school, we will ask for representation from all the key units, so that at the end of the day, we actually can come up with an avenue through which we can dialogue and actually have good conversations with reference to how we incorporate AI into higher education. My dean and my colleagues,
thank you.
I thank you.
Right. No question?
Prof, I had a question.
Me too, I have a question, but just a little.
Okay.
Let's start the conversation.
Because it's time
and
for
later
questions and answers. So,
Okay.
yes, Prof, please, you may have a seat.
Another time,
No, please, go ahead.
So, Prof, my question is, we wanted to know whether or not Kenya University, as an institution, whether we have a policy, and what does the policy say?
We do not have an AI policy, but we put a committee together. Prof. Akowa is chairing the committee. He worked in whilst I was having the... So very soon the policy will be tabled for consideration by planning and resources, and then we take it to academic board. But the way we draft policies is that when the draft is ready, there must be some stakeholder engagement. And so we will throw it at you for you to look at it and provide us with feedback. So we will look at it and see how much AI is sufficient as far as thesis and all those things are concerned. So we are looking at it.
Thank you.
I have, let's see, start the conversation a little, then we can continue later.
Yes, please.
Until this presentation, I never knew responsibility, AI responsibility is so important, very necessary. And I think inclusivity would not be complete or inclusive if you don't extend it to another area I'm thinking of. So AI inclusivity will be incomplete if you don't take it to the area of the feeling of people, the emotions of people. So how do you really determine or factor in feeling of people? And I was marking a student's paper, very, very bad, very bad. The handwriting, very bad. He failed. And a lot of lecturers also failed the student. And later, we realized that the student had a problem. She cannot write. So we decided to give the student a typewriter. And we realized that the student is excellent. One of the best students, but cannot write because he has a problem. But we never knew, and we were failing the students. Another one too had father, mother died a semester, and she failed all the papers. We didn't know. It was later that this same semester before exam, he lost the father and the mother. So I've been thinking, if we use AI in everything, we'll be living out feelings and emotions which AI does not take care of. And that's why I have a problem of the definition of AI. They say everything that a human being can do, but minus feelings and emotions.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yes.
What we need to appreciate is that AI is not complete in itself. The thing about the human being is that when it comes to the capacity of the human being, we have not even explored 10% of our own potential. And the AI is only limited to what is available for it to learn. So I agree perfectly with you. Things relating to emotion, expression of anger, expression of love, expression of disappointment. How do we sufficiently communicate this to a machine for it to be able to learn and to replicate? And that is the reason why in decision making, you do not leave everything to the machine. The human intervention is always very important. The AI is only intelligent to the point that it has been fed with information. But there is a lot that rests with the human being. And that is the reason why you cannot do away with the human being. Many people have said that AI poses an existential threat to humanity and is going to wipe us away and all those things. The reality is that no AI can be more intelligent than human beings. And the reason I say this is that even when it comes to intelligence, we have not explored our own potential to its fullest. So which of the intelligence are you referring to? The one that we are yet to exhibit or the one that is in the public domain? So we need to work with AI to make life better. It is not one or the other. It is both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to ask. Thank you, Prof. I like the idea about the digital economy of AI. And so to speak, when you mention about AI policy, I want to find out whether it's a homegrown policy. I ask this because I'm a member of the university IP committee. And when I went there, the first thing I saw was an IP policy that was not developed in Ghana. It was developed by WIPO and then imposed on the university. And I have several, senior members there. And then I asked them, how would you be able to use an IP policy that was handed to WIPO by WTO and has been given to countries and universities in the South that you mentioned to implement? How would you be able to use it to develop? No chance. It's like telling a Ghanaian politician to go for loan in IMF. It cannot help you to develop. So my question is whether it's a homegrown policy. If it's not a homegrown policy, and then also you made mention of established ISO standards. Are they standards that were set by Africans? You also mentioned about biases,
Yes.
and it has happened to me. The e-gate and the e-passport. You go to Heathrow, if you use your e-gate, the technology in your passport, you scan it. If you're a black person, it's likely to fail. They will ask you to go and, go and counter, yes. So clearly there are biases in these artificial intelligence portfolio that we are presented with. And we stand to, also understand that it's likely that our data is manipulated as Africans and it's been abused. So how do we then try and build our cultural values, which is our identity as a people, into this digital economy or the political economy of AI? How do we make sure that Africans are highly represented in there? For me, this is the biggest, issue that I always think about. That my children will not be seen as Europeans, will not be thinking, or will not be manipulated to think like a white person when they have values or African values. Then you mentioned governance and enforcement. And you know this country that it's so difficult to enforce laws. How then do we even police around artificial intelligence for it to serve the kind of purpose that we want in this part of the world? You touch base on the idea that we don't need to invent the wheel. It's already been generated. We only need to tweak it. What of if we are not able to tweak it? Do we then maintain the status quo? So I've touched, mapped up things. But the bottom line is, where do we fit in as Africans? And what can we do further to protect our identity with homegrown what? Policies. I've been so much concerned. I'm bringing my question to an end. So the African AI policy is not different from the European AI policy. This is the copying and pasting issues that Africans have. We are quickly to go and bring something which we even don't know, and then just supplant those things in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. I think bottom line is that we must be intentional with reference to making sure that what is indigenous to us feeds into how we are developing AI solutions. And that primarily means that, one, the data with which we are training our models, there is representation as far as the African situation is concerned. Your unfortunate situation with reference to Heathrow primarily is as a result of not factoring into the training of the models people like us. And so the reality is that various governments in Africa must recognize the fact that someone from outside will not fight your interest. It is important that we recognize that AI is a game changer to the extent that we bring it home and develop solutions that are indigenous. So for instance, if we are developing an AI solution that detects cancer, let's ensure that our people have been involved with reference to training the model so that we also can be taken care of. Regarding the AI policy and then all these strategies that we are talking about, that is the more reason why we do the stakeholder engagement to ensure that it's something that applies to us. I mean, when I say don't reinvent the wheel, all I'm saying is that there is already some foundation, some work has been done. But how do we apply it to our unique situation so that we can benefit fully from it? So there is the Continental AI Strategy for Africa, there is the EU Act, there is, the UN even Special Advisory also put together a report on AI. Putting all these together and coming home to, for instance, KNUST, how do we ensure that in developing an AI policy for the university, we have taken into consideration the unique circumstances within which we find ourselves? And that is the reason why I think that we need to be more concerned. The AI strategy that I told you about with reference to Ghana was actually triggered by GIZ, which is a foreign organization. You see, so we knowing that AI is a game changer and will affect many things in the future, we must put money into it and say that this is what we want to do for ourselves. It's not because a donor agency has said do this and then you are doing it. So I agree perfectly with you that let's think about ourselves. And for instance, when it comes to the use of the data, you see what it does for us is that it gives us a seat at the table. So if it comes to having conversation with reference to AI, big tech needs our data to make their solutions representative. We may not have the money to put the infrastructure together, but if we go to the table and say that, okay, what I have is data, put the infrastructure in place, and then I will bring the data and we will develop solutions that will be of benefit to all of us, then we will be making progress. But in using the data, ensure that the right laws apply so that you do not abuse the people who have given the data. Then the issue about how do we implement. In the AI strategy that we drafted, there is a responsible AI office that has been proposed that is separate from government. So for instance, you don't want a situation where one government comes and then all the people in that office are sacked. We want it to be an authority of a sort, so that the interest of the people is what we are looking at. So that at the end of the day, when you go to, for instance, Egypt, and they have an AI council, and they make sure that the interest of the public is what is protected. We can begin to look at things within that context. Thank you.
I think my colleague has covered a bit about my concern is how do we get Afrocentric data into the system? And why I think is very key is what you've said. Our uniqueness must also reflect. And I'll just give an example that when I went to Queen's University, a Ghanaian had preceded me. And she had done something there they had not seen, and they loved her for that. She was writing about domestic violence, but she showed how in our folklore, like Kweku Anansi's stories, he beats his wife, he beats his children. And if we learn those stories, beating becomes normal and not. And she was using that but that's the thing. They hadn't appreciated that it's our culture passes on what we believe through those stories. So if we are going to change it, we have to change the Kweku Anansi stories also. These are things that must be in our system. She was talking about a legal issue, but she was reflecting the society. So I think about how we can get that kind of African data. No, and Africa has so much to give, and it needs to be reflected. Thanks.
Okay, so the last thing I want to say with reference to this is that, you know, when they were putting together the Continental AI strategy, they did the consultation, and some of us were on the panel. And what we have said is that, you see, it's one thing developing a very beautiful document, it's another thing implementing it. So we know that if we can be key actors as far as AI is concerned, we need data. But data must be curated. It takes a lot of money to be able to do that. There are a number of funds that are available. One of them is the Lacuna Fund. It helps be able to gather data sets that are relevant to certain sectors. So there was a fund for agricultural data, fund for healthcare, and all those things. But all these are foreign organizations. If we know that the African story must be told as far as AI applications are concerned, when we are reading our budgets, we must be intentional. How much money have we put in there as far as curating data is concerned, knowing very well that we want to be leaders in the coming years? We don't become leaders by just talk. We need to put measures in place to ensure that the key enablers are there. So infrastructure is very crucial. This is how much. We are not saying that overnight we have all the infrastructure all over it. But let's face it. Within the next 3 years, we want to be making investment as far as infrastructure to support AI is concerned. When it comes to data, we want to do same. One other enabler that has been mentioned is talent. Training the relevant people to be able to do this. For instance, in the legal profession, find out baseline how many people know about AI who are practitioners. So starting from that, in the next 5 to 10 years, how many people do we want to train? Same applies to healthcare and the others. If you develop a solution and then you take it to a hospital and the doctors are running away from it, the nurses are running away from it, all the money that has gone into developing that solution goes down the drain. So talent and training people, very important. When it comes to computing power, the same. So all I'm saying is that having the document is one thing, but being intentional about putting resources, and making sure that we are becoming leaders. Everybody is now running to Rwanda. What it means is that some of them, I'm not saying that I'm 100% what is going on there, but at least there is a certain focus and resources are being put in that regard. We can do same in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And Prof, let me also add that Mami Ifwa touched based on AI and intellectual property. Do you know that in Ghana, even this university, we teach intellectual property law? We don't have any policy in this country for intellectual property. You know that? In Ghana, no. Switzerland decided to give us one. And that was Mrs. Betty Imodusi's time. They didn't finish it. And now we teach our children something that we don't even have policy.
So it's a project that those of you handling IP, let's come together and get something started. We can
Ghana,
do that.
I'm saying this because you see, Ghana continues to submit its trade compliance, document to WTO.
Yeah.
They get money for, trade policies and intellectual property, policy. How do we get the money?
We need to start our own.
So if we don't have intellectual property policy, we have AI strategy. And these two, as Mami said, they link together somehow. How then do we make sure that the AI strategies and policies work when we don't have one aspect, which is intellectual property policy work? I'll come and see you later.
All right, let's give it up for Professor Akponyo. Thank you very much for the thought-provoking insight on responsible AI. So now we are the question and answer section. So please, any question you have, we have all our resource persons in our midst, and they will answer them for you. Yeah, Mr. B.
Yes, thank you. Legal education in Ghana still remains very conservative. And we have decided to adapt our teaching, implementing some of these AI models. Meanwhile, we don't control legal education in Ghana, because at the end of the day, they'll be subject to 6 questions, answer 4. The traditional role learning style. With respect, how will we be able to adapt these AI models to the conservative, traditional legal education in Ghana? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bio. Please, who would want to take that question?
Thank you for the question. And you are saying that we don't control legal education, but
Professional.
yes, that we don't control. Yes, but here in KNUST and in our faculty, we offer a Bachelor of Laws, which is an academic degree. We won't veer away from training them, let's say in the IRAC method, when you have a problem. We won't veer away from that. But in equipping them to do research, in equipping them to write, in equipping them to analyze, in equipping them to just be sound graduates, we have room. is where we are bringing this AI aspect. It's the future and it's today as well. So the degree from here will actually be enhanced if they even live here, just even knowing about AI, knowing about using it responsibly, knowing about how much room there is for more work to be done. I think we would have advanced that degree rather than saying that because of controls elsewhere. What we can control is our degrees, and I think there's room there.
Yes, just also add, I think the encouragement of employing the AI application, the legal education, does not mean that we are throwing out the quality and the thing that needs to be done. But rather, we are looking at certain tools and applications that can make what needs to be done much more easier. That is one thing that I think we have been hammering on. Then another thing is that, let's say we don't control legal education. Those who control, where would they be in the next 50 years? But the people that we are training are likely to be around the next 50 years. So there is a need to equip them, even if the present tradition in the legal fraternity is a bit averse towards it. Then the third context is that it's not everybody that we are training at the LLB who is going to be in Ghana forever. How are they able to compete at the global scale? So I think there are a lot of perspectives